7th of October, you guys, it was just the 1st of October, and it's already the 7th. October saying, I'm taking no prisoners, my friend. We are going. Kaende what?
Kaende.
We are in the Situation Room, Dennis and Dennis with you this morning. And we're getting into things today. The Member of Parliament for Mukurweini is George Kaguchia. He's going to join us in a short while. But even as we do, we're looking at starting to take some stories that are coming in from the courts because it's an interesting one. There's a landmark decision. Asatu, you want to tell us about that as we get into it?
Yes, so a landmark decision redefines sharing of marital wealth now. When a couple separated in 2008, their battle over property reignited a question that continues to shape family law in Kenya. Does marriage automatically entitle a spouse to half of everything? Now, the Court of Appeal and later the Supreme Court gave a decisive decision and answer. No property is not divided equally by default, but shared according to each partner's proven contribution and financial or non-financial. Now, according to the courts, matrimonial property is earned through contribution. While the law recognizes both financial and non-financial input, including domestic work and emotional support, a spouse must prove such contributions. The judges have also emphasized that equality does not mean duplication. A spouse who invested money, acquired land, or developed assets cannot be stripped of half simply because they were married. Likewise, a homemaker who sacrificed career opportunities to raise children or run the household should not walk away empty-handed, that they must demonstrate effort, not entitlement. The divorce case involving JOO and his wife MBO has revived this debate before the JOO vs MBO case court relied on a 2007 precedent set by a 5-judge bench in Echaria versus Echaria, a dispute between former diplomat Peter Mburu Echaria and his estranged wife Priscilla Mburu Echaria. So pretty much judges are saying that spouses must prove their input, whether through income, care work, or emotional support, to earn a fair share of property acquired during marriage.
Oh, okay. So before that, a couple of years ago, there was another ruling that said something to the effect that so if you had been married, your contribution towards then sharing wealth was essentially recognized, even if you stayed at home. That it was going to take into consideration that you stayed at home, you took care of children in this case, and this is not just a woman, it's a man and all woman.
All woman.
That the contribution that you made then was recognized. If you stayed home, you cooked, you took care of children, you cleaned the home, you did etc., etc. At the end, if a dissolution of marriage then came into play, then those things would be taken into consideration. Then we say split the thing 50-50. So if I'm understanding correctly, now that has changed where it said, okay, if there's dissolution of marriage and you're now claiming a percentage of the property, you then need to show your contribution.
Yes.
And prove that you had something to do with those funds coming in. If you did not, then the property will not be split down the middle.
Yeah.
Okay. Many would argue that they should have said that in the first place.
But this is going to bring a very interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Because for the longest time, it has always been, okay, so the man works, the woman is a housewife.
Yeah.
That's how Kitambo. That's how the reasoning was. So it's the man who brings home the bread, but it's the wife who bakes the bread. So then essentially when the man is buying property, the man will buy property under his name. So in this case, you are actually being told, okay, you know what? Whatever it is that you're doing in that marriage, work out receipts. Because you have to show proof. But the broader conversation around this is what then it will mean for marriages, because there's going to be an expectation, and the expectation here will be and it will then alter how couples will approach finances in marriage. So here it will be an issue of, do you encourage joint ownership then? Are you going to go to to agreements, written proof of contribution, ni receipt yangu na invoice ndio hii. So we are buying a piece of land together. Oh, ulitoa 20,000, mimi nilitoa 100,000.
Yeah.
So let's agree.
So let's agree.
It's almost as though you're doing it in an anticipation.
It's a transaction.
Yes.
Exactly.
Something might happen.
This is what's going to happen. It's going to shift conversations now. And the impact will be, for those who don't have direct impact on financial input, then we'll have to prove because they are talking about emotions.
Yeah.
You have to prove
Exactly.
your economic value in the marriage,
Emotional value.
your emotional value in the marriage. You have to prove it.
Yeah.
That Mimi, I left my job and I stayed with this man, and from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
I was
I'm
slaving.
breastfeeding these children. I am taking care of the home and everything. And
And
indeed,
him.
there is proof that you resigned from your job and you have these children and these are their ages. You've been taking them to the clinic. So the courts then will consider all those things.
You know, all those will be considered. But now imagine a situation where you don't have kids. The only thing you've been doing is baking the bread, ironing this month's clothes, taking care of the house, and you have to prove that in court.
Where? That you prove that you have
So
to
what do? You have to always save CCTV cameras.
prove that you ironed his shirt.
Yeah.
Hey, life is hard.
Unapiga deki kila asubuhi.
It's difficult. It's difficult, but these are real conversations, eh?
Yeah.
So that we're going to move from having these social arrangements to everything that you do, you're going to have to prove. Well, that's what's happening in the courts, and you'll be surprised that there are very, very many people that fall under that umbrella, and so this is necessary for us to highlight this morning. All right, the Member of Parliament for Mukurweini constituency is one John Kagushia, and he joins us this morning. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning.
This place is not hard to find.
Well, the studio is.
The studio is hard to find.
Yeah, but of course the premises is not hard to find. I've been here many times.
You have.
Yeah, I've been here.
But the first time you here in the on this show.
Yeah, Spice. I think I've had opportunities to come here like twice, but I was unable to.
Mm-hmm.
There's a time I was supposed to come here with Justice Ngenye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I couldn't come because I was going on duty somewhere else, so Honorable Moreu did come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, but I'm happy to be here finally. Thank you for having me here.
Okay.
Yes.
And trust me, you're very protected. You see how hard it was to find this place? Hapa
Indeed.
tutakutwa.
It's okay.
So we can have open conversations.
Well, the only thing
It's
we
a safe
fear,
house.
the only thing we fear these days is goons sent by or protected by the police. That
Goons
is,
protected by the police.
yeah, I think that is what we fear these days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so,
Not citizens protected by the police.
yeah, goons. Yeah, citizens have no issue with people who are speaking for them. Government has issues with people who are against their agenda.
Well, there's a curtain raiser
raiser
for the conversation, if there ever was one. And I guess that's where we're starting from this morning. Dennis, with you this morning to have this conversation. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
As this time, we're going to start off the show. Welcome you. Every week we go around a different around the continent. We stop in a different African country, and we get the proverbs from each country. Dennis will share those with you, and that one for today. And we'd love to get your interpretation.
Yeah, so proverb today comes from Togo, a country, when you look at the economy, the main exports are phosphates, cotton, coffee, and cocoa. And the port of Lome, one of the busiest ports in West Africa, serving as a trade hub for the landlocked country, neighbors rather. Now let's talk about the proverb. A single bracelet does not jingle. A single bracelet does not jingle. How would you interpret that?
Kidole kimoja hakioi chawa.
That's a Swahili proverb for the same.
Yeah, and there's also one, I think from where I come from, says that one stone cannot be used to cook. For you to cook, you need to have 3 stones. Meaning, of course, that you have to have teamwork in what you're doing. And you can go far as many people, but of course, alone, you will not go very far. Yeah.
Yeah, well put, aptly said.
Indeed. Well, all right. Then I guess that is forms even that opinion of the proverb kind of forms a basis for getting into this conversation, because one of the things that Kenyans hope for is an opportunity to experience proper leadership in their time, whichever age group you're looking at, whichever demographic. And one of the things that came clear is that going into the next election, if there was going to be an opportunity to have a different leader, if it is not going to be President William Ruto, if it's going to be somebody else, that force has to come united. So one bangle will not jangle on its own. But it seems as though that's not happening at the moment. That folks can't seem to really get, their unity together if they are the option for an opposition. Why is that?
To start with, John Maxwell said, everything rises and falls on leadership. Leadership is so important in any country, and not only in any country, but in any enterprise. If you have to make things moving, then you must have proper leadership. Leadership that is focused and leadership that is determined to change the lives of other people. Not leadership that is selfish, not leadership that is inward looking, but leadership that is willing and ready to impact the community and the society at what they do. The situation we find ourselves in the country today is a problem of leadership. And I dare say we have probably not experienced good leadership that is selfless for the longest. Because if you look at countries that have experienced leadership that is selfless, they have made very many strides ahead of Kenya, even though we were at par in yesteryears. Now, the search for good leadership in Kenya must continue. And that is why I believe that the kind of leadership we want in the country is not necessarily going to be focusing just on individuals, persons. For example, just looking at Kagushia. What kind of a leader is Kagushia is important. But again, that is not going to be what we require to do as a country. One of the things I appreciate about the changes that are happening in this country is that people are now starting to look at the broader issues, including the systems that underlie the leadership arrangement in this country. People are starting to interrogate what leaders are actually saying with their mouth versus what it is that they are doing and what they intend to do. And again, people are getting a bit more keener on what leaders say versus what they do. That analysis is now very clear. And that is, you see, when people are expressing themselves online, you will see clearly someone bringing what you said and bringing on this other side what you're doing.
Right.
And that I think is very important because it is helping us now not only to focus on individual people, but also now look at pushing the people who are in leadership to only say what they mean and do what they say. Now, you have asked an important question again on the issue of the opposition as it is today. And I needed to give you that foundation, that even as we're looking at the opposition, we must as a country look at the processes that we are having, so that then the leaders we produce at the end of the day do not fall into the same trap that other good leaders may have fallen into in the past. At the same time, a system cannot run itself. There must be people at the helm. And of course, the people who are at the helm drive that system. And we say that a system is as good as the people running that system. So again, we can't forget and we can't put aside the individuals at the same time who are going to run the system. As much as, of course, I insist, we must put very clear checks and balances. So on this now, we have the ladies and gentlemen who are on the one-term movement and who are leading the opposition. And of course, the whole issue here is to replace the leadership that is currently in place, which is led by William Ruto, which I consider to be a divine duty, an important aspect of our country at this point in time. Now, these leaders, of course, that are in opposition must again work together. And in a situation where they are not going to work together, because the opposition today, as we say, is much more people-driven than leadership-driven, then they will have to be dealt with in one way or another. Because if you look at the way things are happening in this country today, the opposition is generally from the people. It is the people who are saying enough is enough. By the way, if people had a way of pressing a button somewhere and the whole of this system disappears and a new one comes, they would do that. But unfortunately, that is not possible. People have to go through these enduring processes. And so the leadership that then we are having in the opposition today, as much as sometimes it's not so easy for them to gel because they are all coming from different backgrounds. These are not people who have worked before together. There are people who are trying to find each other based on the interests. And the people are not going to be allowing them to split and to go different ways.
Which people? Kenya?
The Kenyans. Kenyans are clear that time has come to change the leadership that exists in this country today. They are very clear. And so their focus is on ensuring that we stop the kind of wanton impunity that they see today in this republic.
Sorry, Kagushia, do you think
Yeah.
that Kenyans are concerned with bringing in a new leader or getting out the one who's there? Those are two totally different things. Which one do you think Kenyans are concerned about?
I think from where we stand today, the issue of replacing the William Ruto administration is one issue that Kenyans have all agreed on, that must be done, because the way this country is going is clearly going to the wrong direction. And it's also clear that there is deception, that as we stand today, we are told one thing, but what is done on the ground is exactly opposite of what is said. And that kind of deception is what Kenyans have come to love. They don't appreciate it. They don't like it. People want someone who can say the truth. And by the way, Kenyans wouldn't have a problem if you told them things are not good. And then you told them to tighten their belt and you mean it. By the way, Kenyans would cooperate. They would do so. But now, see what is happening today? A system is put in place. Before you know it, the system was coming only to consume taxpayers' money. And for that reason, Kenyans have continued to get from one hole into a deeper hole. In fact, we can dare say that Kenyans are jumping now from the frying pan into the fire. And that is what Kenyans want to first stop. Of course, they are not going to stop that without also having the thought of where then are we going. That is why those of us who want to be part of the next government must get alive, must understand.
You can be honest with us. I mean, this is an open and honest conversation.
Yeah, indeed.
Can't you, John? You supported the president and his administration
very much
for a long time. And if we can say that, coming into the administration at the time that he did, until the time where you didn't, relatively in politics, that was a long time of support. And so now, Kenyans are hearing you say, actually, you know what, this is not working. This is not coming from a place of castigation, but coming from a plea of understanding, that Kenyans want to understand. How do we resonate with making a shift whereby you would have died on that pole for the president, and now you're telling Kenyans, you know what, you need to imagine or reimagine a leadership. And so somebody will say, is there a dichotomy of ideology here? Or were you just a fair weather friend? Or what kind of leadership are we looking at? Is it grounded? Or is it just, as the wind comes, it blows? Those are the questions that Kenyans are asking. You know why? It is tied to real life situations. It's not up in the air conversations. So let's be real here.
Yeah.
This leadership that we're talking about is tied to a woman dying in hospital, giving birth. This is tied to a child who should be sitting an exam on the 27th of October, but they don't have school fees, so they've not gone to school. This conversation is not just about having a coffee with somebody. It is tied to the reality that there are people who don't have clean drinking water.
Indeed.
You see where I'm going?
I get you.
So if you can be here and smile one day and come tomorrow and say, let's not go, there are lives that are hanging in this pendulum swinging balance. So what should Kenyans actually say? Is it Kagushia today, or is it just that feeling that, okay, maybe I'm not feeling so good? Now, it's Kagushia that's in the spot today, but that's the feeling about every single leader who comes today who says, believe me, today. But yesterday you said something else. Where do you want Kenyans to go?
Yeah. So I want to first look at the first part of your remark on Kagushia yesterday believed in the system, supported the system, but today he says he doesn't. Many of us as Kenyans did believe the agenda and the manifesto that was sold to us by William Ruto. And by the way, if you look at that agenda, it doesn't differ so much from what was also being sold by Azimio.
True.
And so it means that people who crafted those manifestos did a pretty good job. If you looked at the social health arrangement that was sold to us, it was going to help the country to really get from where it has been health-wise to universal health coverage in the country. But one thing that we were not told by the people who crafted this and who wanted to implement is that they also had their own arrangements inside the bigger arrangement that they did not disclose. For example, when SHA was sold to us, by the way, it looked like a good program. But little were we told that there was also 104 billion for setting it up in terms of a system. Nobody said that. That was not in the law. That was not in the manifesto. It was nowhere. It's only at the point of implementation you all come to get shocked that there was a card underneath, never disclosed to anyone before. And at that point you're like, no, you can't use 104 billion to put up a system. How then will we run this system if we use 104 billion ahead of time? And that now explains to you why today SHA cannot be able to pay back the monies that have been spent in hospitals. That's why today we collect 6 billion, we need to repay 9 billion, but so much of what we are collecting is going to these mortgaged 104 billion ahead of time. Something more like the securitization that you're hearing. And as Kagushia, even though I had bought your manifesto, when I started realizing that there were other layers and layers of lies, inside and deception, do you want me to keep quiet? I talk, I say, no, this is not what we agreed. This was not what we bargained on. Look at the issue of the higher education. We talked about ensuring that those people who can really go to school go to universities. But look at what happened at the end of the day. Someone introduces something they are calling a system that is, I don't know, what did we call this system? That was put in place to gauge...
funding model.
Yeah, the funding model. But then there is the inside module that is now measuring
means testing.
The mean testing system. You see, we have had a mean testing system which has been... we call it mean testing instrument that has been used in higher education loan board for years, and it has worked. But look at what happened last minute. Someone introduces another mean testing instrument that now comes to gauge the students afresh, away from what we have had before. Again, when you look at how much it is costing Kenyans, it is billions and billions of Kenya shillings. Then you realize, so it was never about a new funding model, but much more of acquiring a new system. That was just an excuse. Then you feel cheated, and you feel that is deceptive. And then as Kagushia, do you want to tell me that I'll continue supporting that? When again, you look at very basic things that this government has sold to Kenyans, only to realize that in fact, it was all a lie. That is where we draw the line. And that is why, as Kagushia, I said, yes, I believed in you, but now I don't. Because we have deviated from what it is that we sold to Kenyans. And I want to put it clear that Kenyans will have to be much more interested in leadership and what is happening in leadership. And that is why I've talked about the issue of checks and balances. And where churches or religious organizations, where parliament and other institutions have been compromised and have not been able to properly check government, Kenyans are coming in very handy, by the way. And it's something that it's appreciated. And that is why AI, technology, social media is going to be a very important aspect of checking government as we move ahead.
Kagushia, I want us to look at Kenyans coming up to check government, and I will just take you back to the year 2024. And this is the time when we saw Kenyans come up in numbers and say no to Finance Bill 2024. And these are Kenyans who are invested in the kind of leadership, policies and laws that are being passed that would come to govern how the country moves. And at that time, you look at public participation that took place, and Kenyans had said no. But you, John Kaguchia, voted yes for Finance Bill 2024. And at that point, you further look at that and the breakaway between the president and former deputy president Rigathi Gachagua. And one would say, you walked out of Kenya Kwanza government because one of the diminishing president's popularity in Mount Kenya region, and you decided to fashion yourself with a team that would get into sympathy for you to retain your position. It is not about Kenyans, but you to maintain your political position.
My last engagement with William Ruto was during that time. In fact, I remember the following morning, the meeting that he called in State House, I never attended. And I can tell you that it was getting clearer and clearer to me that William Ruto government was losing the plot. It's something I regret, seriously, because we followed William Ruto believing that he had something to offer. But what I realized is that he was misleading us, he was misleading the country, and that he was going to put us in a ditch. And there must always be a turnaround time for everyone.
But at that time, Kagushia, when you were in that house voting yes, Kenyans were outside the National Assembly telling you to vote no.
You see, we had, if you followed my argument here in KTN and also in other media stations, I had highlighted all the issues that I did not agree with. In fact, if you can go back in history and look at my arguments all before, I had highlighted all the things that made me or had made me say we are not going to support that finance bill 2024. I had, for example, highlighted 6 items. In fact, some of the issues that the young people raised and did not agree with came from my arguments on media. And all along these issues that we highlighted, the president was adamant to listen to us, especially those who were against a number of issues that were not supposed to be passed in the finance bill. It's only last minute, some of the conditions that we had given, like myself, that the president onboarded. You remember that meeting that he called us in State House? It's only the last minute that he onboarded the thinking that we need to reject or to remove quite a number of things that were troublesome to Kenyans. And by the time the finance bill was going to be voted in, he had now ceded ground on those issues. But of course, by that time, Kenyans did not care much. For the Kenyans, by that time, they had said, enough is enough, just reject, we don't want it. But again, I was much more on the issues that we had pushed. And I was clear, by the way, all along, if you follow my interviews, I was not a proponent, per se, of the finance bill. I was clear that 1, 2, 3, in fact, I had raised 6 issues that were making finance bill unpopular to Kenyans. Now, those things were done away with last minute. But again, that was too late. When the president did away with those issues, that was too late. It wasn't going to work anymore. So, but after that, I remember that evening in a group that is a government group, I raised there and said, well, I think, President, we have lost the plot. And the only thing you need to do actually is to reject is not to sign the finance bill. I remember most of the people were against that evening. Personally, I never went to State House the following morning. You can check all the videos or the photos. I never went to State House. And for me, that was my turnaround. And at that point in time, I parted ways in my heart and in my mind with William Ruto, never to reconnect again. By the time the issue of Gachagua was coming, I was never anywhere within the William Ruto issues. And that's why I also did not struggle, even with the Gachagua issues. And not only Gachagua issues, even after that. For example, like the following morning after the finance bill was passed, the issue that was going to be voted in was about giving authority to the military to come to the streets. I did not participate in that. I refused because you cannot, again, release military to Kenyans. So all along, I could see things were not working well. But remember, I was a member of a team, and we thought the team meant good. But clearly, you can tell William Ruto did not mean any good to Kenyans.
Kagushia, I have a question. At what point did you realize that you can't trust Ruto? Anything he does or says, at what point?
Actually, I think my turnaround time actually was that time when we had the Gen Z issue explosion. I think at that time I did a lot of self-evaluation. I did a lot of self-reflection. And I realized that, in fact, I remember asking myself questions about why are we even in leadership, if not to represent the people who have sent us to Parliament. And that at that point now, I decided I'm not going to be, following the government directives anymore, because being a first-time MP, I thought really we had a government that cared and that was going to be helping Kenyans. But it was clear from that time that this government did not care much. And of course, I have come to suffer seriously after that, because when now I refused to support government agenda and I said I'm not going to be part of this, government came very hard on me, and they pushed me out of all the committees that I served. I have gone through trouble with goons that I have said here. I have had to take my car to major overhaul in garages like 3 times now, after having been stoned by the goons escorted by policemen. I have had to dodge the Subaru severally in interesting circumstances. So,
were they after you?
Yeah, of course they have.
Why are they after you?
Because now I am not supporting the government agenda, and I'm against the government policies. I speak openly, loudly, courageously, boldly against the oppressive government agenda. And I think everyone has an opportunity if you see where the problem is. And all of us, at one point or another, we are able to pick up our steps and of course, see the right thing. And surely you can't castigate me for having seen the light.
No, it's interesting because it's interesting with the chronology of events, because when you voted yes for the finance bill, up until that point, there was a lot of there were a lot of leadership concerns, governance concerns that Kenyans had raised. The finance bill was just that tipping point, but conversations were already going on. Na kama nyinyi ni watu wa kusikiza ground, the ground was shifting into a different space where they're saying, look, the economy is not doing so well. We're being heavily taxed, and a lot of other issues. But at this point, when the president then says, look, okay, the issues that you had raised, I'm willing to concede this, let's fix this, you still ended up trusting his word, and you still voted yes, until now the protests that was sparked outside then made you and your other colleagues realize, wait, I think we are actually on the wrong side. People really don't want this. So,
but how many people realize that? Not many people.
Now I'm asking you directly because you're here.
Yeah.
At that point, when you're voting yes, this and you are hearing from the president that, okay, this is how much I'm willing to concede, you still trusted the president that he was going to keep his word, and you still ended up voting yes.
Well, at this point in time, it's not about trust, but the issue of it was removed from the finance bill itself. Because now what came to the floor of the National Assembly really was now the new version. The things that were Kenyans had agitated about. And I again repeat, the issues that Kenyans were agitating about are issues that we were actually enlightening them. Remember the issues of diapers, remember the issues of all those taxation issues that we can, look at one by one, are issues that I had personally said and I'm on record. I can produce a record. I had said, Your Excellency the President, so long as 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 issues are on board, I'm not going to be voting for finance bill. Are you getting? Until the last minute that those issues were actually removed from the finance bill itself. Now, at the point they were removed is the point now I was, at least the issues that we had raised were taken off. That morning, when we had the finance bill, I went to a media house. Against the advice of very many people. I went to media house. What did I go to do? I went to raise those issues, the ones that had been removed. And when I did that, some of the people did understand. But of course, at that point in time, Kenyans didn't care. In fact, whether you remove everything or you don't, at that point in time, Kenyans were like,
reject the finance bill.
Just reject it. Are you getting?
Okay.
And so it didn't then matter much. Are you getting? And so on a hindsight, I probably should have, looked away from the system issues. But
and listen to the ground, perhaps?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the hindsight. Yeah. So, but again, from that day, I wrote in the government group in the evening, and I said that people, I think we need to, I think President shouldn't sign this thing after all. And of course, many people say, no, then he will put us under the bus. He will, all manner of things were said that evening. And of course, I personally felt quite disgusted. I felt very, very bad about it. And so the following morning, I did turn up for the meetings. I never went to State House. And so when members of Parliament were in State House and clapping, I was scratching my head when I was watching it on TV. And I was like, no, this thing is not right. And from that time, I had, I don't know whether to call it a Paul Saul or a Saul Paul moment.
When you saw the lights.
Yeah, I said, no, I can't just be part of this.
Right.
Yeah, I can't be part of this. And from that time, you can follow my debates because I'm quite much on media. You can follow my, decisions or rather my voting pattern, even in Parliament, right from that time. No, not even the Gachagua time, but the Gachagua time when he was being removed, I had moved on myself.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So let's look at that.
Yeah.
That clapping scenario you paint at State House is actually imagery for a lot of the things that we imagine happens. Yeah. That unfortunately Kenyans spend a day out voting, or they listen to leaders, would-be leaders, and then they make a decision about how they'll put them in office in one way or another. But then it turns out to be clapping to the executive for the 5 years that they may or may not be there. What goes on in the minds of members of Parliament, of senators? Because you talk about sending a message in the government group. Surely there are conversations that you have amongst yourselves. How often do Kenyans become the stars of those conversations? When you have these conversations, do you really take into consideration what is really happening? Or is it a cabal of individuals who come together as now would-be leaders and say, how do we make this thing better for ourselves? Because you can't see something happening in the country the way it has been, and then people go to State House to clap. Clap what? We usually clap. We give applause in appreciation for something that is that has gone well. And in the middle of the country burning, people are clapping to the executive as they do in Parliament.
Yeah, actually...
What conversations do you actually have, bearing in mind that Kenyans, again, are the ones who are swinging on this pendulum?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. The clapping did not only happen in State House on the 25th of June, it also happened again in Parliament when the President came and said that he had withdrawn the Adani deal. Again, I want to send you back to my stand on the Adani deal. I rejected it openly in Parliament, publicly, and in every space available. And I rejected that Adani deal again because I knew it was not going to work. And you see, that really is not a Gachagua issue. And when we rejected that Adani deal, we were shocked again when the president came and withdrew it in Parliament. But of course, after the Americans pointed out that the Adani were had problems and they froze their account in America. So the members of Parliament must rethink their role in oversight. And I think that is what is happening. I mean, that is what is missing today. Because
do they not know? I'm sorry, Kagushia. Do members of Parliament really? Because they bear this role of representation. That the thought is that as a member of Parliament, Mukurweini, Embakasi East, wherever, that the first group of people that they consider when they're having these conversations or making these decisions is the people. What you're telling me now is that they need to rethink it. It's like me who comes here in the morning and I'm sitting behind this microphone. What else am I supposed to do but share news and information and education and entertainment from this microphone? So what do people go there to do if they must be reminded, Kagushia, about their representative role?
You see, what happens to a lot of these members of Parliament is that they buy the lie that for you to have development in your constituency, then you must support the executive. And by doing so, you might end up doing more harm to the same people you represent when you are seeking for development for them, quote unquote. When I say development, again, I mean quote unquote.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that development is always elusive. Most of these members of Parliament, as we talk today, are crying because of stalled projects in their constituencies. Most of these members of Parliament today are crying because they cannot do even a quarter of what they promised their people.
They would do.
Yet they are clapping for government, hoping that before the election time, the government or the executive will have helped them to fulfill those promises. Only to realize later, and rather belatedly, that you clapped for the executive, for William Ruto, and he has nothing to do with you.
Is it scary? Again, let's have an open conversation.
Is it?
Is it scary to then be able to stand up to this would-be image of the president, the executive, and he may say, do this? And maybe it's scary because I think about when my mother would say something when we were children, and how dare you even stand to authority? You can't open your mouth to say anything.
Of course.
So is it the same kind of picture when the president says, Kagushia and team, do something, and you're thinking, oh my God, we will die?
Of course, some members of Parliament are very scared of William Ruto. That is for a fact. He controls too much. I mean, can you imagine? I was in 3 committees, and just when I said no to William Ruto, in a day like this,
you didn't know you would wake up tomorrow.
And I had no committee. Because like now the committee which I sit in today is, we call it a standing order committee, rules and procedures committee, which only sits when people are busy campaigning at the end of term to review the standing orders. And when you imagine that that is going to happen to you, many members cannot stand that, because of course it also comes with reduced packs. Comes with reduced influence, so to say, at that level. But the way I look at it myself is that if you remain focused on representation, oversight, and standing for what is right, then you are likely to gain more courage, boldness, and even power and influence in the long run, rather than just looking at the short-term gains for a member of Parliament. And so, yes, it can be very scary for members of Parliament to face William Ruto. That is for a fact. And some of them speak in low tones in Parliament that they actually are not very sold out to the two-term movement.
But these are elected leaders. They're not nominated by the president. Why are they scared of him?
There's something that I will also say that happened. William Ruto did spend so much money to campaign, and also spent money on some of those people. And so some of them are quite beholden. That's number one. The other issue is that some of them also have a lot of strings tied with the executive for whatever reasons. Some of them personal, others otherwise.
But you see, Kagushia, that as it may, you look at the house that is Parliament and the way you speak, and one would argue that members of parliament do not understand the power that they wield. One would argue that even the legislature is powerful than even the executive, because it is parliament that approves budgets that goes into to funding all these offices. All these things come back to the house where you sit. Decisions are made in that house. And even when the president wants to pass laws, it has to go through the National Assembly. So when members of National Assembly say that we are afraid when he speaks, we go left or yes, speaks to a group of individuals who do not understand their purpose in that house. And that takes me back to during the campaign period when former President Uhuru Kenyatta had the fuel subsidy. Campaign time, you said it was all about taxes, the reason why fuel was high. But the moment members of parliament go to power, the first thing they changed is to increase the fuel taxes from 8% to 16%. It is all about a group of politicians who do not listen to the people and do as they are told by a person who's considered to be junior to them.
Yeah, indeed. And that is where the problem lies. That President Ruto might have wielded too much of his power and the power of the past, which ordinarily should actually be held much more by the National Assembly than him. But now, because he has approached these members individually, you find that most of them now are totally sold out to him. And that has made Parliament a very difficult place to work in these days. I'll give you, for example, the sale of KPC and the nod by Parliament. I mean, the leadership in Parliament introduces what we call a supplementary paper, ad hoc. I mean, in a very cavalier manner. At the when the session is going on, a supplementary order paper is introduced. Yeah, and their timing when most of the people are not in session. Yeah, they finally look at the time when now the quorum is going down. They mobilize themselves, a few people, leaders here, chairman and vice chairman of committees, they come. And then, tactically, they now introduce the supplementary paper. And quite a number of us reject it. But do you get the time to say a thing in Parliament at that point in time? It doesn't happen. So what you're looking at is also leadership getting extremely compromised of Parliament by the executive.
Why not try to censure the Speaker?
Well, if you look at the trends in our Parliament today through this broad-based government, you find that a majority of members of Parliament, like 90% of them, are now beholden to Raila Odinga and William Ruto. And that has become a big problem for this Parliament. And never again should we have a Parliament that is swayed towards one political leaning in this manner. That is why we need to have a Parliament that has has diverse opinion. Because if you have a Parliament that is thinking in one direction, then it can also be misused in many ways. That is where we are today. And it's a very, very unfortunate situation. I can tell you today, only very few members of Parliament are able and can stand against or can stand up to the executive. Very few of them. In fact, countable. And that has made operations of oversight extremely difficult. And you can understand when now Kenyans have taken it upon themselves to use different means and ways to check the executive and the government in its own way. And Kenyans have actually also rose to check the members of Parliament themselves. You realize that today, as we talk, not many members of Parliament can actually go to their constituencies and do business without having to pay.
But Kagushia, you know why that is happening?
Yeah.
Because members of Parliament have failed to do what it is they're supposed to do.
That is what I'm saying.
So Kenyans are saying, if you guys can't do it, we will do it on our own. That goes to show of a Parliament and a system that is dead. It is very difficult for any member of Parliament to come back and say, please listen to me because I am the savior. Because as much as Kenyans are concerned, Kenyans are saying one word. Kufa dereva, kufa makanga, fagia wote waende.
But again,
those are like 7 words.
But again, you have also to give it to the members who have also stood out. I mean, you have to also be fair to those who are ready and willing to stick out their heads, because it's not all the members of parliament that have flowed with that river.
And I think that's the problem, isn't it? That we're looking for this applause. Again, remember the clapping imagery? That we're looking for this applause over something that is a job. You're supposed to do it anyway. I mean, it feels good when somebody does clap for you, but this is what you asked Kenyans to give you the opportunity to do.
Nobody's asking for applause.
You know,
we're just saying,
they say, recognize that members of parliament are fighting the fight. This is what you were supposed to do.
No, what we are saying is this. In a situation where 90% are not doing what they're supposed to do, and it's clear, and you have a few who seems to be standing their ground and to be moving the wheel ahead, do you castigate all of them? Remember, when God said that he was going to finish Sodom and Gomorrah, he was asked, won't you save this city?
And God said what?
If only,
no.
If only there's one righteous man. Are you getting? And if you were to look at even in the Bible, those people who were righteous were saved. They were not finished together with those who were. You remember even the Rahab the harlot, who was told to put a ribbon on her window, so that when the city is finished, then she's saved because she helped the servants of God. So what I mean is that those who are willing and ready to stick their heads out must be encouraged, must be supported, and definitely, without necessarily having to overdo it, must be just encouraged to do what they are doing. Because again, it is that spirit that remains, that shows that there's hope. There's still hope. That even amidst these challenges that we have today in our country, there's still few people remaining who are ready to stand with the truth and stand with the right thing. And having said that, I will say that at the end of the day, when we come to 2027, Kenyans will still need leadership. And there will still be leaders who will come to serve Kenyans. Okay. And as I put it when we started, it is important, the issue of checks and balances and what is happening in the country today. Yeah. Because we do not want to get leadership that comes on board and then falls in the same trap again.
Of course.
So those are some of the issues that we must be fixing.
As we go along.
As we go along. And again, I also want to reiterate that as we have the opposition today, the main opposition is led by Kenyans themselves. They are the ones who are saying we must fix the system. And to fix the system, we must also deal with the existing William Ruto administration squarely. And for us to be able to achieve that, then they must bring together a leadership that is going to be more caring, more understanding, and more interested.
It's on the people.
Indeed.
That's what the member of parliament for Mukurweini constituency, John Kaguchia, has told us this morning, and of course walking us through a lot of those things. It's interesting to hear, and then the voice of Kenyans is actually just as loud. Thank you so much for being in the room this morning, and we look forward to more conversations with you.
Thank you.
Good morning, 3 minutes past 8.
The World, 94.4 Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.